Hello again, this is Eric Coleman, the state senator from the Second Senatorial District here in the state of Connecticut. I have been entrusted with representing the towns of Hartford and Bloomfield and Windsor, which comprise the Second Senatorial District. I want to welcome you to another edition of the Senate Reports. I am your host. And today I'd like to talk a little bit about some local issues, some state issues, and some commentary on what's happening at the federal level. But first, beginning with some of the local issues, I wanted to make mention of some of the activities that I've been involved in. I want to shout out to the Voices of Women of Color and just mention that they held their 4th annual Trailblazers Award ceremony and banquet, and they paid tribute to 5 individuals, including State Representative Matt Ritter, Patrell Mailer, Max Katari, April Knight, who received the Community Service Award. John Motley received an Education Award. Max Katari was presented with the Small Business Recognition Award, and Patrell Mailer was recognized for her work in the area of public safety. Representative Matt Ritter was recognized for his work in public health. Congratulations to all of the awardees, and also congratulations to the Voices of Women of Color for a very successful event. Locally, in the city of Hartford, the big issue is budget woes. And the city of Hartford is faced with a $48.5 million budget deficit, which the mayor has made some initiative to try to close. His steps have become very controversial. He's proposed a bill in the General Assembly, Senate Bill 464, which provides for the establishment of a Sustainability Oversight Commission. Some people view it as an effort to have the state take over the management of the city of Hartford. Some people view it as an effort to circumvent the collective bargaining process and to abrogate some of the contracts, the collective bargaining contracts that are in place for city workers. Specifically, among the things that Senate Bill 464 proposes to do in order to save money for the city of Hartford and help to close the budget deficit, it seeks to renegotiate some of the labor contracts, as well as to restructure some of the pension systems and benefits that current workers and retirees are subject to. It also finally seeks to revise the healthcare benefits and healthcare coverage that city workers would be entitled to. As you might expect, the city workers are very concerned about Senate Bill 464, not only city workers, but also nonprofit organizations and many citizens who reside in the city of Hartford. But specifically, the workers are concerned about layoffs and the withdrawal of certain benefits. And many of them cannot understand or reconcile the fact that many new administrators, both on the city side and the Board of Education side, have been brought on board to work for the city at 6-figure salaries. And at the same time, the mayor is now saying that the city has no money. So it's very difficult for many city workers to reconcile how both things can exist. New employees at the managerial and administrative level being brought on at very high salaries, and at the same time, lower level workers facing the prospect of layoffs and the reduction in benefits and revision of terms of employment and conditions of employment. So stay tuned It's already become extremely controversial. On April 4th, there was a meeting at City Hall, and the City Council people entertained a resolution that was designed to support Senate Bill 464, which essentially calls upon state legislature to intervene into the affairs and management of the city of Hartford. The City Council rejected that resolution by a vote of 8 councilors against and only 1 councilor voting in support of the resolution. At that meeting, there was a lot of outrage expressed. It was a very boisterous and contentious meeting. And at some point, Mayor Bronin was escorted from the meeting under the protection of 2 police officers. So it's quite clear, as dire as the circumstances may be as far as concerns the city of Hartford's financial situation, there is some work that still needs to be done. To the mayor's credit, I think he is recognizing that something drastic and dramatic has to occur in order to right the circumstances of the city of Hartford, particularly financially. But as far as process is concerned, he probably needs to go back to the drawing board and to open up the lines of communication between the state legislative delegation, as well as, and probably most significantly and importantly, the various labor unions that represent the workers in the city of Hartford. So stay tuned regarding this issue. The labor unions have already indicated that they are willing to talk and negotiate with the mayor, that they will undertake on their own to find ways in which they don't like to call it concessions, but ways in which they can help the city to find savings within the various contracts that they have negotiated and are subject to. They've expressed that they want to be a part of the solution and that they can make a contribution toward resolving this current situation with which the city of Hartford is challenged. Sure to hear more on that, and as things develop, I will let you know through this program and through other means. Similarly, in the city, not city, but the town of Bloomfield, there is somewhat of a controversy that's brewing. The Niagara water bottling plant has proposed a development in the town of Bloomfield, which many of the environmentalists have come forward to oppose. Their concerns seem to be based upon, number one, a lack of transparency in the process, but also environmental concerns regarding the bottling of water in plastic bottles, which they are against, the high volume of water that is being used, and much of which is being shipped not only out of town, but out of the state. And there are concerns regarding the discount that's being provided to Niagara by the Metropolitan District Water Commission, as well as the transportation of the bottled water and the trucks and the exhaust and fumes that would accompany the trucks moving the product from Bloomfield to whatever other locations it is intended for. This is another hot button issue. The transparency issue, I think, is one that needs to be explored. The town council could have done a much better job in making the residents aware of what was being proposed for this particular parcel of land in Bloomfield, and that Niagara was involved, and that high volumes of water and discounts being granted as far as water rates is concerned, as well as tax rates being granted to Niagara in order to facilitate the development of their water bottling plant. So those are things that are happening at the local level. Let's take a break and we'll come back and talk about some of the developments at the state level. Hello again, and welcome back to the Senate reports. We want to continue the commentary for today by talking about some of the things that have been occurring at the state legislature here in the state of Connecticut. And viewers should know that the Judiciary Committee, of which I am co-chair, has finished its committee work. We met our deadline of last Friday. And we recommended a certain number of bills to the Senate and the House of Representatives. Among the major issues that we focused on in this session, a lot of it had to do with violence against women. And there is a very significant movement against human trafficking and another focus on domestic violence. And so there are 3 or 4 major bills that have come out of the Judiciary Committee focusing on those particular issues and generally considering how to better protect women and children who may be victimized by abusers and violent individuals. Additionally, the Judiciary Committee has been involved, as viewers would be aware from previous programs, reforming the criminal justice system. And there's a continuation of that effort to reform the criminal justice system in the state of Connecticut in this particular legislative session. Governor Malloy has proposed Second Chance 2.0, which is a continuation of the initiative that was passed into law during the last legislative session here in the state of Connecticut. And specifically, the Second Chance Initiative 2.0 has to do with raising the age of criminal jurisdiction in the state of Connecticut and also reforming the bail system in the state of Connecticut. And generally speaking, the raise the age component of the proposal has to do with expanding the jurisdiction of the juvenile court such that anyone who is less than 21 years of age would be treated as a juvenile or a youthful offender. And it wouldn't be until a person reaches the age of 21 that they would be subject to criminal prosecution in the state's adult court. So potentially what that means is that a person, unless they commit an extremely serious offense, would not be in a position to have a criminal record until the age of 21. And a lot of this is based upon relatively recent research having to do with the development of the human brain. And much of that research indicating that the human brain is not fully developed until approximately age 25. So that impulsive behavior and lack of good judgment are characteristic of the immature brain, and oftentimes is a large factor in people engaging in conduct that may be offensive to society and may be criminal. But I guess the rationale further is that people who are young and of tender age ought not to be saddled with a criminal record, particularly for nonviolent offenses such as possession of marijuana, which may serve to stigmatize them and act as barriers for future activities that they want to engage in, whether those activities be employment activities or educational pursuits, or even enlisting in the military. The thought is that what people do during their tender years ought not to inhibit them for the rest of their lives. The second part of the proposal is equally as controversial, and what that second part proposes to do is to virtually eliminate bail for misdemeanor offenses. And so, in other words, if a person is charged with a misdemeanor offense, that person would be entitled to either a promise to appear without conditions, a promise to appear in court with non-financial conditions, or that person would be eligible to be released on a 10% cash bail. So for any person charged with a misdemeanor offense, the consideration would be, what is the likelihood that this person will return to court when he or she is supposed to return to court? And the thought of many is that bail should not be used in a punitive manner, but the main and primary consideration should be the likelihood that this person, what is the likelihood that this person will return to court when he or she is supposed to return to court. For felony offenses, the proposal becomes a lot more controversial. On misdemeanor offenses, there is little opposition. Even the bail industry, perhaps reluctantly, but the bail industry is among those that agree that excessive bail in connection with the commission of misdemeanor offenses is probably not the wisest of policies. Where the proposal becomes controversial is where felony offenses become involved. And Governor Malloy's proposal extends the 10% cash bond alternative to felony offenses. And as you might expect, the bail industry has suggested that such a proposal would put them out of business. And I'm not one that necessarily agrees that whether or not the bail industry flourishes ought to be a consideration for whether or not Governor Malloy's proposal should fly or not. I think there needs to be some balancing. I'm not necessarily in favor of putting whole industries out of operation, but I do think that there are constitutional considerations, specifically that bail should not be set in any amount greater than what is reasonably likely to guarantee the person's reappearance in court. There are certain statutory and constitutional protections that a defendant should be afforded. And I think in connection with the governor's bail reform proposal, that is the balancing that needs to take place. I do believe that as the bill progresses, it was approved by the Judiciary Committee and progresses to the next stage in the process. I do believe that some changes may be in order, and some changes are likely to occur before all is said and done. But again, this is another groundbreaking initiative in the arena of criminal justice here in the state of Connecticut. And having participated in a national conference earlier in the month of March, many states around the country are looking at Connecticut and applauding the efforts that are being undertaken in Connecticut to give serious attention at the reformation of the criminal justice system. And so viewers should very likely stay tuned concerning what develops in connection with Second Chance 2.0. And I'll be here with the Senate reports in order to inform what have been the prospects concerning that bill. We're going to take another break, and then we'll be back and we'll talk about some other state level developments as some commentary concerning what's occurring at the national level.
Finding Peace Campaign presents the second annual Women's Empowerment Conference at Club Vine, 70 Union Place, downtown Hartford, Connecticut, Saturday, April the 23rd, 2016, from 3 p.m. until 8 o'clock p.m. Don't miss the powerful live performances and guest speakers. For more information or tickets, call 860-830-5944 or visit ladyflava.com.
Now, some insurance companies brag that they could be on the scene of the accident right after it happens. Whose interest do they have in mind? Yours? I don't think so. You may be one paycheck between you and the street. You have 3 children, work in another town. You need that car and you need it fast. If you have an accident, call me. Attorney Jeffrey Dressler, 24/7, 1122.
Welcome back. This is Eric Coleman again, and thank you for viewing the Senate reports. We've just finished talking a little bit about what was occurring on the state level, and want to continue that commentary concerning state level developments, and perhaps time permitting, comment a little bit about what is occurring on the national level. Just a few minutes ago, we talked about the Judiciary Committee's activities and some of the bills that we recommended to the consideration of the State Senate and the House of Representatives. The State Senate was in session this past Wednesday, and among the things we did was to entertain a resolution calling for Congress to appoint a justice to fill the vacancy that was created at the U.S. Supreme Court as a result of the death of Justice Antonin Scalia. And there was much interest in this resolution on the part of the Senate Majority Leader, Bob Duff, who proposed the resolution, and proposed the resolution apparently for a couple of reasons. Number one, the person nominated by President Obama, Merrick Garland, was a person of, or is a person of impeccable credentials, and deserves the respect and consideration and the courtesy from the United States Congress to have his nomination entertained. The second reason for the resolution was the fact that until that vacancy is filled, the Supreme Court will be composed of only 8 members, and there are a lot of issues that may potentially be deadlocked on a 4-4 vote, which is disadvantageous to the progress of the country. Many issues are subject to being left in limbo because of a lack of a majority vote on the part of the U.S. Supreme Court. Many people view what's taking place with respect to the lack of the nomination being acted upon as a continuation of the mistreatment and the disrespect that's accorded over his years in office to President Obama. I have a slightly different take on that. I don't think it's necessarily racially motivated this time around. I think it's more politically and ideologically motivated, in as much as the person that's appointed will pretty much serve as a swing vote, or the deciding vote, in fact, on a number of controversial issues. Whether those issues have to do with a woman's right to choose, or whether it has to do with collective bargaining issues and labor issues. This particular vacancy is critical, I think, politically and ideologically, to the various segments, political segments in particular, of this country. But I suppose I would be one that has felt very fortunate to have had the experience of observing the election of, not only observing, but experiencing the election of an African-American as the president of this country. And I suppose the joy concerning that event is tempered with my observation of how this president has been treated or mistreated during the course of his years in office. And a lot of that, I think, is racially motivated. Almost immediately after his election, you've heard, we've all heard comments from conservatives and others in the country to the effect that they've lost the country. We've heard comments concerning how they've got to take the country back. And all of those kinds of comments seem to indicate to me that there is a racial aspect to, at least from the viewpoint of some of the conservative circles in this country. And during the course of President Obama's service, I think it's indisputable that he's certainly demonstrated the intellectual capacity on a policy basis. I think he's proposed and actually had enacted into law some substantive and significant pieces of legislation, and many of the policies put in place even by executive order have been meaningful and significant to the country. But the most unfortunate part for me is the fact that the election of an African-American president in this country, while it should have signaled a progress on the part of folks on racial issues, it should have signaled that we are entering a post-racial society. The unfortunate part is that it merely served to, in an even more pronounced way, expose that racism and discrimination are alive and well in the United States of America. And because the president's position is such a high-profile position, the spotlight was sort of shined on how race enters into many of the routine aspects of life for African Americans. In other words, if this person of such high position is treated in the manner that he's treated, merely because of his race and his ethnic background, what does it mean for how the everyday Black man and woman is treated in America? Over the course of the time that President Obama's been in office, we've seen petty episodes of mistreatment, such as Congressman Joe Wilson's interfering or interruption of his State of the Union address when he blurted out, Congressman Wilson blurted out, "You lie." We've seen the invitation extended to Benjamin Netanyahu, who came to the United States Congress when I think it was clear to Republican leaders that it was very likely that President Netanyahu would use that platform in order to be extremely critical of President Obama. And the feeling on the part of many is that if it were any other president, that would have been treated or regarded as a very unpatriotic act. Nevertheless, it did occur with respect to President Obama. President Obama was the subject of the birtherism movement. And I'm not sure what to say about that, except that it seemed to me to be totally irrational and totally based upon President Obama's race and ethnicity, something that definitely should not have occurred. To his credit, President Obama has done positive things as far as the U.S. economy is concerned. There have been about 13.7 million jobs that have been created in the country. Unemployment is at about 5%. The auto industry was saved. A depression was averted. As far as policy is concerned, he has trademark legislation passed, particularly the Affordable Care Act, which has resulted in 10% of Americans who were previously uninsured now being insured. He was, in many respects, a president that the majority of Americans could be extremely proud of, and only scratch their heads at the assertion of Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz that President Obama was the worst president in the history of this country. Really. One of the things that I'm extremely proud of is the fact that the first family, Michelle and Malia and Sasha, have comported themselves in a very dignified manner and is a first family that the entire country can be respectful of and proud of. I guess my lament in closing is that I would certainly have liked to have seen what President Obama could have accomplished had there been even a modicum of cooperation on the part of Congress. And furthermore, there are two conclusions that I'll draw. First is that it is unlikely that there will be in the near future another African-American president of these United States. Firstly, because having observed what President Obama has been subjected to, even the most qualified of African-American candidates would likely not want to entertain the possibility of running for president. And second, and perhaps even more significant, is the fact that even folks from other communities, people of goodwill, would probably be reluctant to support an African-American president on the basis that, an African-American presidential candidate on the basis that we've observed the obstruction that occurred with respect to President Obama, and the same kind of reaction may very well occur with respect to any other African-American who's vying to become president of the United States. So why even bother? A vote for that person would be a wasted vote. Those are unfortunate circumstances. And while I hate to close the program on consideration of such unfortunate circumstances, we've run out of time. And so we will have to pick up this discussion at some other time, hopefully during the next program of the Senate Reports. Thank you for watching.
Cities and towns can make a significant difference in creating a healthy community. Cities across Connecticut are making a pledge to offer healthier food and beverage options. This video will show some examples of what's happening in Hartford's early learning centers, schools, neighborhood markets, and work sites. Children are our future. Healthy foods equal healthy kids. Early learning centers ensure access to healthy foods.
They enjoyed the meal really good because they had the opportunity to interact with peers during lunch. This is the perfect time for them to talk about what happened during the day. And also they had the opportunity to try some new food that they doesn't have the chance to try when they're at home.
We try as teachers to get them to eat vegetables because, you know, vegetables are not the number one choice with young children. So what we do is we'll try to tell them, use your tiger teeth and bite into that carrot, you know. So we do things like that to get them encouraged to eat.
We're trying to promote healthy living, so always giving them pointers with fruit, how they can dress it up on the plate to make it look nice, because if it looks nice to the eye, they're going to want to eat it.
We like to encourage people to cook. Don't go out and spend your money on fast food, greasy food. Bring the family into the kitchen. Buy all your fresh products and cook a decent meal. So when you come to ACA, you find all those fresh produce. You find your yams, your pumpkins, your chayotes, all those things that you need to cook that fresh, healthy meal at home. Bring the family together at the table and let's eat some good food.
While SNAP and WIC customers are very important for our business, we try to provide best choices for them and a good variety for them as well. This is our passion. We're here every day from 7:30 in the morning till 9 o'clock at night, just trying to be the best we can for our community and providing the best we can.
Just like that. $3.
Well, the school menus, I think, are a very important tool to provide students with what we have on daily basis. Provide great variety of items, including fresh fruit, including fresh vegetables, which we have been on sort of a mission to get the students to have these items on daily basis.
We want Hartford to be a place where every resident can get healthy food options, good, affordable, healthy food options, where they live, where they work, where they go to school. And, you know, our schools are working in close partnership with a lot of organizations in the community, along with City Hall, to make sure that we're making the healthy option the easy option. You know, healthy eating is a key to living a healthy life, especially for our young people. We need to all make sure that we're part of making Hartford healthy and strong. And whether you're an employer, an organization, a nonprofit, a school, join us and take the pledge. You know, commit to trying to make healthy options more available, easier to find, more affordable. If you want to be part of making Hartford a healthy city, go to heart.org. Take the pledge.